The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Hello and welcome to another Soccer to the Max, as the MLS Conference Finals are set, and they will of course take place after this big international break that is happening. And there's NASL playoffs, USL playoffs, lots of other stuff going on in American soccer right now. And here to talk about it with me is, of course, Miss Rachael McKriger.
Hello.
And Mr. Erik Watkins.
They were bad.
Erik's coming back from a wedding, so he's still kind of not feeling too great. But we're gonna power through.
A wedding and kind of being under the weather, but to tie over from our Thursday football to the max comment or podcast, no, they did not have even the opportunity for me to speak now or forever hold my peace. And no, they didn't even throw the garter. So 0 for 2 in that regard.
Darn. I'm sorry, man. At least you don't have to worry about catching it on accident.
This is true. So that was very much a win.
I accidentally caught the bouquet at my brother's first wedding because I had no idea what the heck. I was just walking by and it was there, and I was like, well, I'm not going to let this fall to the ground. And my brother kind of looked at me like, well, you weren't supposed to be there. I was like, this is what happens when you have your wedding at a, high school gym. But, all right. So, anyway, yes, the MLS playoffs, the first round technically now has finished, and you have the top seed going through on one side, and on the other side you don't. And this continues the trend that has been going on in MLS since 2012. Columbus Crew hold on for dear life and get through 2-0 on NYCFC. You have Toronto and Red Bull battling it out. Literally. Toronto gets through, so you have that matchup. And then you have Houston going into Portland and actually winning and getting through. And then you have Seattle that was able to put that nail in the coffin in Vancouver and get through as well. So many things here to talk about. I guess, Rachael, Seattle made it. Clint Dempsey once again shines.
Yeah, you're darn right we made it. And it's going to be interesting. I really wanted a Portland-Seattle clash again, just because I firmly believe in not just being a Seattle supporter, but I firmly believe that Seattle and Portland is one of the best rivalries in the MLS. But I don't know. Houston throughout the whole season didn't do well in away matches, but here in the postseason, they just keep winning and winning and winning. But I don't know if they can go into Seattle, CenturyLink, and pull it off. I don't think they can.
Yeah, it's certainly a difficult ask, Erik, for Houston to do this, but Houston is the best home team in the entire league, and if they can nick a goal or two, or just even be leading by one going into that game in Seattle, they've already got the proof in the pudding here from what happened in Portland.
Exactly. And Let's look at over what happened in the East with Columbus as an example. Everybody thought, with a lot of momentum, everything that's going on with the team within that city and ownership, they would just be a little bit happy to be here, energized, maybe get one or two, but NYCFC would come through. Lo and behold, they win the first leg 4-1. Now, do I think Houston has that level of firepower? Even though they are kind of riding a championship wave with the Astros, I don't think so. But at the same time, would a 2-0, 3-1 result in Houston surprise me and give the Dynamo that much of an advantage? Absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd expect that Seattle's going to come out much different than they did against Vancouver, and actually go out there and try to score and put on the game. I think it also, you're talking about this happening after that international break. What's happening in that international break? Honduras is playing Australia to try to get into the World Cup for CONCACAF. How many? There's at least like 4 or 5 Hondurans that play for Houston. I mean, that could mess with their entire attitude. They could be very down coming back from that, or they could say, okay, look, we're going to put this behind us. Let's go out there and try to win an MLS Cup now and get revenge that way. Do you think that affects them at all, Rachael? Like, knowing that you got this big conference final coming up and you got a much bigger game even for your country before then.
That's where the debate of which comes first, the club or the country. And I think, personally, when you're in that situation that Honduras is in, I think you have to put the country first because, World Cup is clearly a lot bigger than the MLS Cup. But, yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the... How does that saying go? The nail on the hammer?
Nail on the head.
Nail on the head. I think you hit the nail on the head because, if they come back and they lose to Australia, it's going to be tough to build yourself back up even when you have teammates that, didn't lose or play in the match. But, if they win, it's a different story, and there's a lot of what-ifs right now for not just Houston, but in the playoffs in general.
Do you think it makes a difference at all for, maybe not for Dempsey himself, but for the team, if Seattle doesn't make it to MLS Cup, what they do with Clint Dempsey's contract and all that next year? I mean, do you think that's a thought at all here?
Well, I think with Clint Dempsey, win or lose, I don't know if he stays in Seattle just because there's so much talent, young talent above him that's playing more effectively. I mean, granted, also Jordan Morris is injured. If you have him in there, it's a whole new different ball game. I could see him going to a team that needs a striker, a consistent striker, because Dempsey can play.
Right.
It's just not really how you want to use him, but like who's on the team as well in that position.
Yeah, because he's getting older, so he can certainly still go out there, like you said, and score. And that's an important facet of that. But, we've seen for the national team, he kind of comes in and subs on and all that stuff. Would he need to be used in that role? Could he still be starting a 34-game season? I mean, that's a lot to ask somebody at that age to still do, but... certainly I think they want to get through this part of the playoffs first. I mean, Erik, continuing on with this, I guess, to stay in the West, do you feel like one team has an advantage over the other here?
I really don't think so, because I will give Seattle a little bit more credit. They were already having to deal with one side of the Cascadia Cup rivalry, already a little bit more battle-tested in their series against Vancouver. But at the same time, Houston, you look at that series, they had to go through, a good 130, 140 minutes of football before anybody could score a goal. And even when Portland struck first, Houston came back with 2 to not only have to worry about away goals on aggregate, but to take it outright. So the advantage, if any, is pretty slim, but me personally, I don't see it.
Yeah, I just don't know, because there's been a lot of proof about how actually having that first leg when you're the lower seeded team helps you, because you can set the tempo and set the score at home, and then you go into that away setting, and then you basically get to manage the game instead of the other way around, and the other team kind of has to, be the one that forces the play. And if you're Houston, that's what you want, because that's what you do. You counterattack all the time. You win on counterattacking plays. So Seattle has to be careful with that. But yeah, congrats to Seattle and Houston on that end. And we'll see what happens with that international break as far as a lot of Houston's team goes. But on the Eastern side, there was a lot of, I wouldn't say controversy, but a lot of extracurriculars with Toronto and New York Red Bull. Red Bull get a goal off a deflection. At halftime, Sasha and Josie go at it in the tunnel. Josie gets knocked on his butt on the floor. Brawl ensues. Jesse Marsh comes in there for no reason whatsoever. Michael Bradley rightly tells him, "What are you doing here?" And they keep jaw-jacking. He tells them to get the F out of here, and great job, coach, among other things. Michael Bradley gets a yellow. Both guys get a red. That's why both teams came out playing 10.
And it was weird because it all started really on the pitch with the whole shoving down and this and that. And originally, both Sasha and Josie Altidore got yellows. So I thought, okay, this is getting a little chippy. And then as I see
Josie was already going to miss the match.
Yeah. And so then I saw, okay, wait, why are both teams playing with 10? And they mentioned it, and I'm like, of course. And then afterwards, Josie naturally tweets, and it's, fantastic.
Man, he was getting at Sasha Cluston there.
Literally in this case, thanks to Twitter.
No, it's just like I'm trying to find I don't know if he deleted it now.
Oh yeah, he definitely deleted it.
He told Sasha Cluston, "Why are you?" But he's going at him,
snitching. Coming at me with my back turned. It almost worked. Safe flight. And I'm like, wow. So who's really the dry snitching one here?
Wow, we're threatening now. All right, this is But see, MLS needs this. I think they need a little bit more, gusto in their playoffs, because I feel like nobody's been paying attention to what they're saying, really, or to what they're doing outside of what happens with Columbus. That's in the ratings. It's shown that Columbus games are doing double what the other games are because of the Save the Crew stuff and all that, and the other things are just the other games. Maybe they're not as entertaining either, but it's just, geez.
Yeah, that one, I mean, with Columbus, you already have a major backstory. I would argue even better backstory than with Toronto, with how they did in the regular season. Because Now everybody expects, okay, they're doing their job, but with the records of all these other great seasons in all the other sports, you know it's going to be at some point eventual failure. Whereas with Columbus, between the backdoor deals with ownership and the sneakiness, the douchiness, the cardboard cutouts, the email hoaxes, all this and that, this is a very, very telenovela style story that we've got going on here. And everybody's going to tune in to watch to see how the team's going to do on the pitch and what happens next.
Yeah, so which one's worse, this push down or the one by Liam Ridgewell and Kubo Torres? Because that one was, to me, that one was even worse. Like, Ridgewell bumps him with his one arm, and Kubo falls and acts like he just, broke some ribs or whatever. At least this one, Sasha had a clear two hands on him.
Yeah, but at the same time, look at the size disadvantage. Are you really gonna push a big guy like Josie down to where he'll flop like that? Come on now.
Yeah, I mean, like, did you see his flop? I mean, come on, dude. He barely even touched you, and you acted like friggin' jumping off a bridge. Like, get out of here, bro.
And Giovinco's like right there to like, hey, you all right?
I'm just saying, if these two ever get called into national team camp again, whew.
That's gonna be intense.
That's gonna be a tad bit awkward.
I'd imagine it won't be in November, so they'll have plenty of time to get over it. I'm guessing, unless Toronto goes and wins MLS Cup, then maybe Sasha might harbor something, but we'll see. Because again, these lower-seeded the lower-seeded team is winning a lot more of these ties, and the fourth seed, which Houston is, won the MLS Cup last year and has won the MLS Cup a couple of times. Aside from that, since this whole system, so hey, Houston might have some.
I mean, you're looking at wild card teams now, 10-10 in conference semifinals, and 7 out of 10 conference final series since they started the two-leg aggregate, lower seed prevails. So everybody called me nuts for the matchup that I picked, and yeah, I was nuts, but not for the right reasons.
Listen, I'm on that Columbus hype train right now. Like, I love Seattle, but with everything going on with Precourt and Save the Crew and everything, just the momentum behind Columbus right now, how can you not want to be a part of that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think the thing that kind of dampens it a bit is that they have a whole season next year, so they could turn out to be totally bad that season. That Precourt, gets his wish or whatever. If this was one of those like, oh, this is the last season. Or it's not that it's the last season, but it's like in this turmoil, and they can move at the start of next season, and then they go on, and let's say that whether they host MLS Cup and lose, or host MLS Cup and win, or if they get knocked out here in the conference finals, like just what you get out of that. If you're Precourt, like, man, your team rallied around the fact that you're thinking of moving them. Are you really going to move him after that? It's just...
Yeah.
It's crazy. Not to mention, he already has, the executive vice president organizing rallies in Austin to see what the interest is and talking to people and stuff like that. That's not really great if you're a Columbus fan, because it obviously shows that they're entirely serious about this, but... Just gotta hope the team keeps going.
Well, there's also a little extra motivation because we're going to witness the first time that Trillium Cup rivals will meet in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Take that for what it is.
Two teams that attack, too, so you know it's going to be fun. This is going to be the series to watch. I don't know, because Houston, we've seen them be a bit damper, especially on their pitch that, you know, looks bad at times. So we'll see how that goes. But both of these ties should be very interesting, and I hope that all goes well. NYC, though, are able to get 2 goals, but not 3. And that final goal by Harrison Awful winds up being what does them in because Columbus holds on. I just felt like it was so appropriate for Pirlo to come in with like 5 minutes left. It's like, man, you've been reduced to this, Pirlo. One of the greatest ever.
Yeah, and the fact that, guess what? You're going to be on the pitch for 5 minutes, and then you're going to be gone.
That doesn't help the MLS's case when they say we're not a retirement league.
Well,
definitely doesn't help their case.
No, and then Kaká leaves. He doesn't even play in the last game. It's just... Yeah, I mean, but the good thing is that means that they're leaving, right? They're not. It's not that they're coming in. You're getting the younger players coming in, so that's good for the league. Almiron is getting another offer of $20 million from another club already. So, you know, this could be if MLS can get its head out of its butt and understand that this might be what you need to do to continue to get younger players in here, sell them off at higher prices. Come on. Oh, Don. One of these days, sir.
I'm serious, Don. We're speaking some truth around here. Money, players, prestige.
Do you not like money, Don? Actually, Don loves money. In fact, this is what Don has some thinking to do, because if he grants the Detroit team an MLS expansion bid, you know, an opportunity, you get a lot of money coming in this league, because you've got Dan Gilbert, the owner of the Cavs, Tom Gores, the owner of the Pistons, and now the owner of the Detroit Lions. So all 3 major sports teams would come together in one ownership group to have this Detroit MLS team play inside Ford Field. That's crazy for one, to have all 3 of the major owners for one city come together.
No, it wouldn't. Well, because I mean, yeah, you got the Pistons, you got the Lions, but you've got outside ownership.
Well, and the Cavs, yeah.
Yeah, I'm about to say, outside ownership from the Cavs. Well, the owners of
that's
the Cavs
crazy, too. Like, the Cavs and Pistons. Like, what are you doing owning something together? And y'all are rival NBA teams.
Oh, please. They haven't been rivals in about 10 years. Let's be real.
Well, they play in the same conference.
They play in the same division, but they haven't been rivals. Ever since the Pistons dropped off, it's been meaningless.
They're trying to make a comeback, though. I mean, the way the Cavs been playing, who knows?
It's still the East. I mean, come on now.
No, you're right. I'm just saying. But still, I mean, so they go from having the stadium site that was at the unconstructed jail to this. It was like a halfway finished jail there that they were going to basically tell them to go, here, we're going to give you the money to go build a jail somewhere else and make it part of this big old jail complex, and let us build the stadium here.
That sounds exactly like Detroit.
That
That might just be the most Detroit thing that I've ever heard in my life.
Oh my god, I can't.
But instead of doing that, we're now going to just have them play at Ford Field, which, you let Atlanta come in here like this. What keeps other owners from saying, well, why can't we do that?
Yeah, but I don't know, the fact that Atlanta built the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in part with soccer in mind, that was really never the equation for Ford Field.
Oh, yeah. That's the truth right there, Erik, is Ford Field has been around since 2002. Soccer's never been the idea here. You're just basically getting extra money in there, which is great for the team. But is it really good for the league to have another football stadium put into this instead of having your own soccer-specific one, even if it is in the same place where they were going to build a jail?
Well, and that also eliminates a potential NWSL combination too, because Ford Field, they're not gonna play MLS. I mean NWSL.
Yeah, probably not.
No.
I mean, they could have the NWSL team play somewhere else if they wanted to.
Yeah, but then when you're kind of putting yourself right at square one. And I mean, the fact that you're so insistent on using Ford Field, even after you have $100 million in renovations, fine. You could easily have a different ownership group with a mindset to try to do something with the old Silverdome. I mean,
you're not going to do something with the Silverdome.
I know, I understand that, but I mean, you would have had to think about it at some point.
What, are you going to deconstruct the Silverdome? That thing seats like a ridiculous amount of people. I mean,
Well, hell, I mean, if you're going to spend $100 million in renovations just on Ford Field, you can drop $100 to $150 million and do something with that. It wouldn't necessarily have to be entirely deconstructed, but it could certainly do with some reconfiguration.
well, MLS says that they continue to prioritize soccer-specific stadiums. It doesn't say that they mandate a soccer-specific stadium, but this also is what makes Cincinnati a problem, because they're pretty much been told that no, you're not getting in with Nippert Stadium. They have to go find another soccer stadium somewhere else.
Oh, that's a bummer, though. That's a bit
That makes no sense, because Nippert Stadium's hosted national team games.
Yeah, but they don't want. Apparently, MLS does not want them playing at Nippert Stadium in the league, which is making them look at 3 potential sites for the stadium. Nashville's also having that issue where they're waiting till a vote on Tuesday that would give them the $275 million that they need to build their stadium at the fairgrounds. But the council member is sitting there going, very much like what Detroit just did, hey, we have 3 other sports stadiums around. 2 of them can host soccer. Why can't we do soccer in there?
See, Don? They're not playing ball, Don. You don't want to deal with Nashville. #vote no.
Vote no so Erik can just be right. That's what he wants it to vote no.
And also, we hate Nashville.
I don't hate Nashville.
I'm with Erik on this.
For my friends who are listening, let me be clear. I do not hate Nashville as a city. I just hate it for soccer. Big difference.
They sell out every time the Nashville team goes there.
And
They've
Yeah, and
hosted. They do well when they host Gold Cup. I'm just saying.
And how do you expect that to continue after the night that shall not be named?
Well, we'll see how that goes, right? I mean, we're gonna go through it's gonna be 5. It's gonna be some years of difficulty, but that's gonna be the same for everybody that the U.S. plays in front of right now because, hey, you didn't make it to the World Cup. A lot of less people care. It's
exactly, and the fine citizens that attend the Grand Ole Opry and the Predator games in Nashville are amongst them. And I mean, of course, the Titans are doing well this season, so they've got other things to think about. Am I right, Nashville?
Well is relative when it comes to the Titans, but they were leading the division, so I guess that's what matters. The reason I brought all this up is that it was supposed to be Detroit, Cincinnati, Nashville, Sacramento were the leaders when it comes to the expansion bids. Then Phoenix threw their name in the hat with their, we're privately funded, we don't need anybody's help. And then they kind of rose up to the ranks of Sacramento as, okay, we're just waiting for MLS to say yay. And now you've got these other cities that are kind of, well, okay, what are you going to do? Are you giving me the field at Ford Field? Or are you giving me the field somewhere else? Or, Nashville waiting on the city the council to whether they're going to give them the money or not. That seems to happen with a lot of teams that are trying to get MLS bids. The government says no. So, it leads me to believe that what they're going to do is, I don't know if you guys think they're going to surprise or not, but I feel like they're just going to go Sacramento, Phoenix, y'all are the first 2 teams. We'll give the rest of you guys a year to figure it out.
Oh, Phoenix. Don, don't do it. No.
I just hate that we're having to get another California team too, but it's whatever. I know that
Sacramento was awesome. I've got no beef with Sacramento.
I don't have a problem with Sacramento either. It's just, not yet. Wait till they keep talking about the Kings or something.
Trust me, nobody's talked about the Kings in Sacramento in about 6 years, so that's not going to be a problem.
In fact, Sacramento's already doing pre-construction, so they're getting ready.
They need a team. They need a half-decent team aside from the Sacramento Bats.
The Bats?
What? Why would you...
Yeah, the Bats, and I believe they were also named at one point the River Bats. Oh, they were the AAA A's, the AAA Giants. Look at their history in the Pacific Coast.
Wow. River Hounds sounds okay. River Bats?
Yeah, River Hounds. Woo!
I don't know.
Shout out to the Pittsburgh River Hounds on Soccer to the Max.
Yeah, see? They need to get a shout out in.
Yo, girl's out here. She got you.
Do bats even go around the river? I mean,
look, you're talking about someone who lives in a town. Look at our names: Jaguars, Sharks, Giants. Then you go to Armada, Jumbo Shrimp, Iceman. We have a rather eclectic collection.
Wait, hold on. There's a team named the Jumbo Shrimp?
Yes, our baseball team. They were the Suns. New ownership came in, and they renamed it the Jumbo Shrimp.
What?
That's awful.
What?
Dude, I bet everybody on that team wants to die.
Actually, no. The team was pretty good this year. You had the mascot.
That has to mean that Jumbo Shrimp is in catering all the time, right?
Yeah, a shrimp forming the letter J as part of the logo.
What?
Swinging a bat. Oh, yeah. I highly suggest you look it up. It was a very
Oh,
story.
my gosh. Wow. Well, you learned something new. Soccer
And of
the
course-
Max, I did not
I
know.
can't wait to go down to Florida.
And Sean, this impacts you because we're the AA Marlins. So there's that.
Oh,
It's just,
not that I care, but
it's,
you know, it'll be just. It seems rather appropriate, I guess. So, hey, we're talking about lower division teams here. The whole USSF NASL lawsuit that
In that
has
dumpster fire.
yes, that dumpster fire that's going on. Well, NASL did not get their mandatory injunction, so they have pulled an Ezekiel Elliott and already appealed to the second uh, district court in New York. They're seeking an appeal to try to get their injunction while they're awaiting the ultimate ruling. If they do not get an expedited injunction, they might have to wait a while. In fact, even might have to wait until the start of the season, which means you might have more teams leaving NASL. You already have North Carolina FC heading to USL, and the team that could wind up being the champions, because San Francisco and the New York Cosmos are playing each other in the final, and San Francisco has already decided that they are not even going to come back as a team next year.
Well, hot dog.
Imagine the team that wins, they're not even going to be a team next year.
Sean, number one, I've dealt with that before. I've dealt with California teams having one of the best seasons ever, winning a championship and completely folding. So this is nothing new. And two, does this mean another league can come along and hijack the soccer bowl? Because come on, it's that has to stay alive somehow.
That it does. The NASL does need to figure out something, hopefully for them, really quick, because things don't look good. Apparently, they could not prove that they would have extreme harm done to them if they were relegated to Division 3. And that was
extreme harm.
I mean, they've done that to themselves, but
poor guys like Robert Palmer making commercials, smiling, saying "Go Armada," and they may not even exist next season. That just makes me sad.
Or, the Miami FC owner that's basically funding other teams so that they can make it look like there's more teams trying to get into the NSL. There's that too. That's the saddest part to me, is that you have to fake interest in your league by telling them, hey, we'll prop you up for a while. Just make it look like your city is trying to get into the NASL. I mean...
Oh my god, that is sad.
Not to mention that you have not been able to meet the standards that they've asked you to meet for like 10 years. So, I understand that, hey, you need to have Division 2 that helps you. You have all these teams, whether they're being propped up or not, that want to be in the league, but they can't financially afford it if you're not Division 2. I get all that, but it's not their fault that NASL, every team lost $5 million last year.
Ugh. When the major arena soccer league is jockeying for position and is better stable than you, no offense to that league, hashtag let's get tropical, but that's still a bad look.
No, and it's not just that too. It's just, Camiso trying to go after U.S. Soccer for something. You got Silva going over trying to get promotion relegation from FIFA. I mean, they're all over the place. And I get it that you get less money in Division Three, but USL's been made it work before. You know, NISA's starting there. I mean, it's obviously working for some people.
And I can only imagine with the ideas that USL's cooking up. Since NASL, say if they do go under, imagine what it could do for them in strengthening with their mission and objectives.
See, but my thing with NASL and Camiso and everybody is that, do they not understand that in sports, you can't have two Division I leagues of anything? It's one league. So, unless you think you're going to topple MLS, which you're not, even without U.S. Soccer's, tie-in or whatever, you're still not going to top them. So, either deal with being Division II. I get it, the whole point is for the free market, free market and all that stuff, and, have at it with that, but deal with being Division II, or don't. Or just don't be there. Or how about Camiso just go make his own MLS team? I don't know, but...
And even then, you talk about the free market, guess what? Supply and demand. If there's no demand for your particular product or your particular model, the free market is going to tell you, hey, you may want to fix this.
Yep, exactly. And NSL is going to have this problem. I think they're going to have a problem showing the second district court this extreme harm or irreparable harm. I mean, obviously they are going to have irreparable harm for not playing. That's pretty obvious, right? But to show that it's this ridiculous thing that, well, some of these teams couldn't just join USL and be okay. I don't know that that's true either. Oof. And that was close. But, yeah, I mean, you mentioned USL, Erik. Thank you for the segue, by the way. And
you're welcome. Even not at 100%, I still got your back.
USL doing their they are about to crown their champions as well. You got Swope Park Rangers, of course, the two team of Sporting KC, and Louisville City, which is the third time in 4 years that Louisville has made it to the final. They'll be battling it out. See if Swope Park Rangers can do it for them with us two teams. If not, you got Louisville City representing. And they've also gone in and trademarked names of 3 leagues that are basically going to be divisions for USL, as well as a youth league. So they trademark USL Championship, USL League 1, League 2, and USL Youth. How do you like this idea of the USL basically deciding we're going to be like the championship and have leagues underneath us? And this is kind of what NISA is trying to do as well, so it seems like a lot of thought to having leagues underneath you to have so many teams.
I personally am completely for it, because if you think about it, you've already got a lot of good MLS infrastructure with their 2 teams. And if you're going to be adding teams from your independents, your affiliates, your partner teams, your reserves, and any other teams that come in from NASL or wherever, you get to the point to where you are going to be way too big for just one league. So if you have 30, 35, 40 teams, you can create easily 2 to 3 divisions. I mean, I know of a league structure over in England, how they have with the Rugby League. They've got their Super League, 12. The Championship, 12. League 1, With the addition of the Toronto Wolfpack, 16. Done. Promotion, relegation, everything's set up, neat and clean. And they also have their different playoffs for different parts of how you finish in each part of your league after that. So I think USL is approaching this very, very smartly.
It seems weird though, like you have this, so you have NISA wanting to do this, you have USL wanting to do this. I'm guessing they're going to have promotion relegation within their own systems. But this is going to make it really hard if you ever want to have a structure with MLS, USL, NISA, whatever, if every single one of those have like a League 2, 3, and 4.
Well, really, the only thing that I could see how they could coexist is how rugby league used to have it in England for a good few years. They had between Championship and League One promotion relegation, but the Super League, which is our top flight, operated under a franchise system. Now, if USL and NISA can get together and coexist and say, hey, we're both going to have second, third, fourth division teams on the soccer pyramid, let's see what we can work out, and then work with MLS to where you decide, hey, if you decide for any expansion, these are requirements to get a franchise, I think it could be harmonious. The only thing that I see would be leading this to failure is if USL and NISA are combative against each other and try to stamp each other out.
Yeah, which we'll see how that goes, because it seems like USL certainly is going to go with this MLS map and say, okay, we understand we can't be Division 1, but we can take the rest of the pyramid and make it ours.
Exactly, and the fact that USL already has that MLS rub gives them an automatic advantage.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting to see how this pans out. Obviously, this is going to take time for them to do, but I like this idea of just continuing to grow soccer in the grassroots and just create more teams, create more leagues. I mean, not that, that it means that everybody's going to be watching all this, because you possibly can't, but the more infrastructure you have, the bigger chance you have it surviving. And part of that is trying to name a U.S. soccer president here. And good Lord, Rachael, I feel like every day somebody is deciding that they're going to run for U.S. soccer president.
And for some reason, it's not Julie Foudy. Oh, God, I want her to run so badly.
She said no, sadly. But I feel like that was thrown out there just to see if she would have interest, and then she said no, sadly. But, it's one of those things. Maybe in the next term, let's see how this goes, she might. But now it's Paul Caligiuri, of course, the man from the shot heard around the world in 1989.
Yeah.
God, are we still on this, Erik? About
You're the one that brought it up this time.
I brought it up because that happened.
Yes. It did now, didn't it?
I didn't say it didn't. I just said that those players weren't having revenge in that mind, but all right.
Sure, right. Okay. All right.
Well, he did play with Erik Wynalda on those 1990-1994 teams, so they'll be going against each other. And you also have Carlos Cordero, who is the second in command to Sino Galati, but he says he has his own agenda and that it has nothing to do with whether Galati runs or not. He wants to be more open, that he wants the Women's World Cup here in 2027, and it's pretty much what everybody else says, trying to get the U.S. back to the World Cup in 2022 and everything else. I feel like we still only know platforms from some people, but he seems like he's a much more structured than I think people are thinking. Oh, this was just Sunil's second in command, whatever. I don't know, but good Lord, there's a lot of people running for this already. So you got Paul Caligiuri, Carlos Cordero, Steve Gans, Paul Lapointe, Michael Winograd, Erik Winalda, and then if Sunil runs again. That's 7 people running for one unpaid position.
Yeah, well, if it's lucrative enough, I mean, come on. Unpaid, sure, but power does very funny things to people. And needless to say, right now, at a time where U.S. soccer is at a little bit of a nadir, getting that power is now exponential compared to what it was even at the beginning of the last term.
U.S. soccer's in a little bit of a nadir. Rachel, do you think that there's a chance that if there's...
word.
What?
You've never heard of that word.
No, I'm thinking of the guy that ran for president.
Oh, no, not in Ralph Nader, 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 Nadir, bottom, depth, chasm.
Ah, okay. I always thought that was like Nadir.
I've always pronounced it Nader, and nobody's ever corrected me, so...
Who knows? I could be wrong in this. I just look at it and... But whatever, you have a point. We are at the lowest point that you can be at for a soccer country. So, let's start anew, I guess, with whoever gets elected in February. I just hope that we hear more of these platforms from these guys pretty soon, because I still feel like we don't know. I know we have nothing to do with who gets picked, but still, the court of public opinion sort of matters in this decision, even if unofficially. Do you worry, Rachel, that if there's so many people running that he will just go, oh, let's just go with the guy that we know, and Sunil wins?
Yeah, I think that's kind of tough. It's like a split vote almost. It's hard when you have that many people, and especially with that many different agendas, to make a huge decision like that.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I was worried about this happening, that you're going to have all these people throwing their hat in the ring. We still haven't even heard from Landon Donovan if he's running. And it's like, I think there's only so many different... You have to have 3 nominations from 3 different parts of the soccer pyramid. How many positions do they possibly have to be able to nominate all these people, too? Like, at some point, you run out of people that can nominate you. So, I don't know how this is all going to happen, but I guess they will figure this out. Either way, you got to come with what you're trying to get pushed forward in U.S. soccer, or this is going to be kind of a dumb point to keep going over and over, folks. You need to make it happen. Rachel, you weren't here with us on the last show to talk about the U.S. women's roster that got named. A lot of the same players, right? But you get Adriana Frank and Andy Sullivan's back, and there was one... Oh, the Orlando player that we can never say her last name.
Uboka?
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's a good roster, but again, Jill's playing way too many attack players, and defensive positions. It's quit playing players out of position. Maybe national team fans will actually like you if you do that.
You think they finally have a test in Canada where that could be taken advantage of here?
Oh, yeah, I think Canada's going to win at least one of the games, if not both.
Uh-oh. There you heard it. The first one's on Thursday.
Depending on who they start in goal.
So who do you want to see start in goal then?
French.
You should, if you're winning goalkeeper of the year in NWSL, you should be getting an advantage, but you know who they're probably going to start. So, sadly, it's probably going to be Nair.
Or Harris, yeah.
So, just because we don't really get to talk about college soccer that much, for the second time in 2 years, UCLA and USC has broken the NCAA Division I women's attendance for one game. So 11,925 people went to the Pac-12 final.
Ooh.
And UCLA defeated USC 3-2 in overtime. So
That's that crosstown rivalry for you.
Well, in 2014, they had 10,128 people there for USC UCLA. So that's I don't know why you would have less people there a year ago than you would have 3 years ago, but that's the college is weird sometimes.
Well,
You aren't kidding.
It's about timing, and this is UCLA USC. This is arguably, especially this year, the most meaningful game that those two schools are going to play against each other for some time.
Yeah, I was listening to it. I hope that this is also something that gets brought up too by whoever wins the soccer president, even though I don't know how much they can do with the NCAA because it's a whole different ballgame, but I was listening to a show where I think the person he's in charge of, he has a high position in all this. He was saying that I think they asked coaches and athletic directors and stuff, and they said it was over 40% wanted a academic calendar for soccer in college, which means they would play year-round instead of playing 3 or 4 months out of the year. And I hope somebody takes that into account because that's important for those players. Yeah, you're getting, for the men at least, yeah, it's sort of like the last-ditch effort to get you somewhere if you don't go straight to Europe or you don't get into the youth academies. But it's still important, and playing 3 months out of the year instead of playing, year-round that's a big difference to your conditioning and how good you can get to.
Or you can be like a BYU and essentially, quote-unquote, defect, and instead of playing your soccer in the NCAA, they play in the Premier Development League of USL.
But where does that funding come from, though?
Well, I mean, for a lot of the larger schools, you could have boosters, alumni, what have you. You could make it work. And also, it's not like they're jumping up and going into the higher tiers of USL, so the level of funding doesn't necessarily have to be so exorbitant. There are a lot of schools that could look and try to make that work.
You're right. I don't know if that's going to be the way that it happens, but just hope that...
It might not, but there's precedent for it.
I don't... You're right that there could be bigger schools, like the North Carolinas and the Stanfords and all those that could do it, but I'm sure that they like their little conference and getting the NCAA funding and all that such things.
It's for when it comes to soccer and NCAA funding, it's nowhere near as big as you would think.
Oh, I'm sure it's not compared to the football and basketball and all that, but I don't know. I mean, how much money do these schools really have to give to soccer to go play in the PDL, though?
Well, it would probably be a similar amount because, I mean, hell, you look at some of these institutions, their athletic departments and their athletic brands are valued at $1 billion. So even if you only take a fraction of a percent of that, that could work in going into the PDL for at least a season, if not multiple seasons.
Hey, more teams should do it, but will they? Or perhaps, U.S. Soccer could step in and try to make it to where they don't have to. But let's see if they want to mess with the almighty NCAA or not. So before we get into the last part with the U.S. men's national team, since they had one person in particular discuss things, just to tie things back into MLS and kind of end our discussion on that here, just to humor Erik here, because Erik is always talking about bringing back divisions in MLS, especially if they get to, or whenever they do get to the 28 teams, or if they get further past that. Somebody at 442 had the idea of, hey, let's try to solve the playoff problem by having, well, Paul Tenorio did, by having the divisions come back. And his idea was, for one, MLS has way too many teams making the playoffs right now, but when you have 12 teams or even 14 when you're to 28, that kind of evens it out. So he says that we should have two 14-team conferences. They're split into 4 divisions each, and that they would still play the 34-game schedule. Each division would have 7 teams in it. The teams would play each team in its division twice, so 1 game against every other team in the league. That would have a 33-game schedule, and you can have a rivalry game or some kind of East-West, interleague, whatever thing for the 34th game. So this way you don't have to have more games or anything like that. And then each division winner would advance the playoffs as the top 2 seeds. And then the final 4 seeds in each conference would then be determined by the most points. Do you like this idea of bringing the divisions back in it? So his idea is to have Vancouver, Seattle, Portland, Sacramento, in quotations, San Jose, LA, and the 2 LA teams. And then have Minnesota, Sporting, Colorado, Real Salt Lake, Houston, Dallas, and Austin if Columbus moves. And that's all in the West.
Okay.
And then you have Montreal, Toronto, Red Bull City, New England, Philadelphia, DC, and Atlantic Division, Chicago, and then a bunch of proposed expansion teams: Detroit, Cincinnati, Nashville, Atlanta, Orlando, and Miami in the Continental Division.
I would not be upset about that whatsoever.
That Pacific Division would be nasty.
It would be very nasty. Now, what you could do to also balance this out is, if you really wanted to hype up rivalries, you could do division winners and then 4 wild cards per conference, or you could do the top 3 in each division, and then you could have your first round or 2 of the playoffs be divisional. So you can also create kind of division championships, and then division champions face each other for the conference championship, and so on and so forth. So that's an alternative that could spice things up a bit as well.
Do you like the idea of, I know we're getting this, moves us completely away from any chance of the European model, Rachael, but do you like the idea of divisions? I mean, this is an American thing after all.
Yeah, but I like the European model better, so I don't know.
I would love for them to get to single table at some point, but I feel like that's just never gonna happen.
No, I mean, let's face it. The only way that you get to single table is if you have it to whereas most countries would do a double round robin, we would have to be big enough to have a single round robin and any extra rivalry game if need be. And I don't think MLS wants to shorten the season that much.
But why couldn't you just do a double round robin?
Because as it stands right now, you're looking at what? 20, even with the current model, 22
with 32 teams, it'd be 40.
No, with a double round robin.
Or 28, sorry.
Well, no, with a double round robin, a 28-team league would mean a 54-match schedule. That's nuts.
Well, if you kept the conferences at least.
Well, but I mean, even then, if you keep conferences, you would still do double round robin within conference, but then you'd be stretching out, it still wouldn't be single table. If you're doing single table like you want, it would have to be single round robin.
I feel like the best thing they could do at that point is that they just do the Apertura and Clausura thing, if they're going to do that. Because
yeah, but even then,
how 50 games all in one go?
That's
some kind of break.
And that's why I say you do single round robin. Because say, for example, a 27 or 28 team league, you do a single round robin and then a derby match. That's a 28 match season. You could actually allow for more breaks, fewer midweek matches, things like that. But MLS owners wouldn't want to give up that much revenue compared to things now.
Yeah, but they would probably find a way to make it to where you'd still be 34, play some of the, like, the rivalries that already exist, like the Seattle and Vancouvers. You can have a 3-match series or something like that. The ones that, that already have established, and then you can still sort of decide to make your ones that you want to make by region. But this is still just an idea. Probably won't happen, but interesting possibilities being thrown around. I like that people are thinking. We've already seen a lot of people. We talked about the group thing with the playoffs last time, Erik. We talked about somebody wanting to bring back divisions. I like that this is being brought out there.
I'm always loving radical ideas and tinkering, because it gives me a chance to tinker and do things better.
Yeah. So, I think we're going to just go ahead and close here. And we'll have, there's nothing like pressing after, since MLS takes a break. We will be back on Thursday after the U.S. Women's National Team game against Canada to talk about that, and then whatever else has been going on. I'm sure there'll be more stuff with the crew and what's going on behind the scenes there and everything else by then. And then after that, Sunday will be the next women's game, so we'll be discussing that game as well. So until Thursday, thank you for listening. If you like what you heard, hit the subscribe button. Soccer to the Max. You get all the shows that we do right there whenever they appear. And if you really enjoyed it, you can hit that review button on iTunes or Stitcher or YouTube or wherever it is that you listen, and give us a review. That would be nice. Make sure to visit W2Net.com for all of your W2 Network podcast needs. And follow us on Twitter at Squid Sporthead for Erik, at McKriger for Rachael, and at WTM Sean for me. And we'll see you later.
Peace.
See ya.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.